just want to have some clarification here. We did miss a notice of motion that was done by Director Anderson. So I will be amending the agenda to include that under notice of motions. I believe that Mr. Yates has put it in there, but it wasn't in there when most people looked at it before. So is there any other additions to today's agenda? Seeing none, I will call the question on the agenda as amended. All those opposed? Director Anderson, you had a comment?
If I can figure out, can you hear me?
Yep.
I think it was Julie who requested at the end of the last meeting, and I thought it was a really good one, that because the chat is the record of who is moving and seconding things and voting against. So the request was when moved or second, like has just happened, that you enter the item number. So, you know, A2 moved or A2 second, just for our recording clarity. I don't know if that's something, Madam Chair, you want to ask.
So if I can jump in here, Madam Chair, so staff are also on here and monitoring the who the chair is recognizing as making motions and seconding, and we're recording that. So when we post the minutes, those are being represented by how we're keeping track of it. So the chat, all of the chat isn't really the record. We're not posting that, if you will, but we're keeping track of who's moving and seconding motions by the chair's acknowledgement.
Okay. Thank you, CAO Leach. I am just, I am cognizant of the transparency and on this, so I'll be trying to do as much as I possibly can. Thank you for reminding me of that, Director Anderson. But on C, which is the adoption of the amended public agenda, is there anyone opposed? Seeing none, I will call that carried. I have no petitions or delegations. Can I get somebody to please move E, the adoption of the minutes for April 15th? Thank you, Director Moglove moves. Seconded, Director Unger. And once again, I would just like to see those minutes amended as they didn't reflect the notice of motion from Director Anderson. It got missed. So if we could add that in as amended minutes, that would be fantastic. Director Adams.
You might be muted.
January 1941.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to confirm that the rezoning bylaw 387 will be on the next board agenda.
Can you remind me what 387 is?
387, that is
also
in the report.
Everyone had an identity.
Do you have the TV on or something, Director Adams? When you unmute there, we're hearing a radio or TV or something.
Okay.
Just to answer his question, I know what 387 is, and that was the referral that was necessary to come from the city of Campbell River, I believe. And yes, it will be on the next board meeting.
Thank you. So on the minutes as amended, is there anyone opposed? Seeing none, I'll call those minutes carried. Is there any business arising from those minutes? Seeing none, I'll move forward on to section 8, which is the notice of motion that was provided by Director Anderson. Director Anderson, you have the floor.
Thank you for providing it on the screen there. So the notice of motion I made last time was that the recording of this meeting be made available to the public after this meeting. Not the most fantastically worded motion, but if there's a seconder, I would speak to it.
Thank you, Director Moglove. Go ahead, Director Anderson.
Yeah, so what I'm understanding from the chair in the in her little report sent out in the director's updates yesterday was that these meetings are indeed being recorded, and that this meeting that we're presently in, the recording will be made available in the minutes at the end of the week. So that's great. Really glad that we found a way of doing that. And just for historical transparency, would love that to be retroactive to the meeting that we did 2 weeks ago. Not much more than that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And as the chair, I'd like to bounce in on that. So it's not going to be reflected in the minutes. The actual video and audio of this meeting will be provided as a link on our website as soon as staff has the ability to get it up there. So that is going forward, and I was going to speak about that more in the chair's reports. So anybody out there who doesn't wish to have their face out there or whatnot has the ability to take their video off, and it's just it's a courtesy of the board to make sure that everybody understands what the process is going to be. And I do like your motion, Director Anderson, because one of the other issues that we now can look at is our last meeting, of course, also had the video and audio as well. That we could move forward in putting up as well, but I would need direction from the board because there was no direction at that time, and people that were on that call didn't understand that they were being videoed and audio and that both would go up. So I would need a motion from the board to reflect last meeting's video and audio to go up onto that if somebody was willing to make that amendment.
I would be more than happy to consider the motion that I made if it was considered a friendly to just have it be audio so as to decrease anybody's concern about the video. That the audio recording of this meeting be made public.
Of the last meeting.
Ground.
Of the last meeting.
Thank you.
Yes. Okay, and I think that's being seconded, and I think that was the intent. Is there any other comment? Okay. Seeing none, I will call the question on the motion that's on the floor, and that is that the audio recording of the last meeting be made available to the public after this meeting. Is there anyone opposed? Seeing none, I will call that carried. Thank you very much, Director Anderson. On to I, which is Chair's report. I just have a couple of things to mention. I hope everyone is staying safe and healthy. I think the practice of social distancing and washing our hands is certainly flattening the curve, but I still think we need to follow the public health officer's orders and make sure that we don't reverse that. So please, if you're talking to constituents, ask them to be patient, and we are moving forward, and I think we can be through this a lot quicker than some of our other fellow provinces. So please be patient. The Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing meetings that myself and others from this board are on is moving to bi-weekly calls. So we will be reporting out on that through the chair's bulletin piece. And I am on meeting tomorrow with Island Health, along with Mayors Adams, Mayor Unger, Mayor Colborne, and Mayor Davis. And that will come out in the bulletin as well. I also want to just let directors know that staff has been in conversations with the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing regarding our neighbors just to the north of Campbell River here in Sayward and some of the issues that they are having. And we are trying very hard to work with them to see if there's any way that we can assist them while they're going through a little bit of a tough time. So if anything needs to come back to the board, that'll certainly be there to watch. So directors can watch for that. And also just to let directors know that at the next meeting, I believe staff is in the process of preparing a report that takes a look at what the financial implications and service levels of the COVID-19 event are having on our organization. And they will be reporting out on that like I said, at the next meeting. So if for anybody that has questions about that, they can certainly contact the CAO or wait for that report to come out. That is all I have for my report. So if somebody would like to move my chair's report, I would entertain that. So move. Thank you, Director Wally. Second, Director Unger. And I have a question from Director Adams.
Only when we get to receipt on K.
I'm sorry?
Only when we, my comment is for when we get to receipt on Strathcona Gardens Commission.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Thank you very much. I'll call the question on my report then. Is there anyone opposed? Seeing none, I will consider that carried. We have nothing on the consent calendar. On to section K, Chair's reports. Strathcona Gardens Commission, Director Anderson, or Director Adams, sorry. Moved. Okay, I need a second. Thank you, Director Unger. And that is that the draft minutes of the meeting April 15th be received. And comment, Director Adams.
Just a question through to staff as to why is there no record of the action on 3320 and 3420 regarding the jersey?
We may not have heard back. Tom, have you heard anything? I certainly have not.
To the corporate officer?
I don't know if he's muted or not.
So if I may just to the CAO, if we can just ensure that that is not left unattended, because if we're receiving the minutes, there was reference there, but it appears incomplete because I don't see a record of action.
Okay, thanks. I'll take care of that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Director Adams.
There you go.
Is there any other questions? Seeing none, I'll call the question on K, the Strathcona Garden Commission minutes. Is there anyone opposed? Seeing none, I'll call that carried. And I see in the chat section that Mr. Yates said that the Jersey report will be next meeting. So thank you very much. I have no extraterritorial reports. On to M, staff reports. Number 1, the visitor radio service. If I could get somebody to move receipt of report, please. Thank you, Director Kerr. And a second. Thank you, Director Unger. And to staff.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Don't have anything to add on visitor radio, no.
Hey, is there any directors that have any comments regarding this? Seeing none, I'll call the question on receipt. Are there anyone opposed? Seeing none, I'll call receipt carried. On to Part B, that the Regional District acquire the visitor radio asset located at the Strathcona Gardens Recreation Facility at a cost of $1,500. Moved by Director Adams, seconded by Director Kerr. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. Is there anyone opposed? Seeing no one opposed, I will call that carried. On to number 2, which is the Cloetsis Treaty Table Representative. Can I get somebody to move the receipt from the corporate or from the CAO? Thank you, Director Anderson moves receipt. Second, Director Kerr. Is there any discussion? I'll go to the CAO.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm not sure Tom's mic is working, or maybe he's getting too much feedback in the boardroom. But if the board remembers, when Director McDonald resigned as the mayor of Sayward and the representative on the SRD board, he made a request to the board that he continue to be the Cloetsis rep on the Treaty Advisory Committee. Staff have done their due diligence, and there is the ability of the board to appoint a non-director on this committee. So there is nothing that it would inhibit us from allowing Director McDonald or John McDonald to continue on the advisory committee and or pay expenses that he requested. So the report is up at the request of Director McDonald, and we wait to get direction from the board.
Thank you, CAO. I have speakers list. I have Director Wally and Director Cornfield. So Director Wally, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, as much as I think Director McDonald would do an excellent job in this, I don't think it's appropriate to have someone represent the regional district who is not accountable to the electorate. So therefore, I'm opposed.
Thank you very much for your comments. Director Cornfield.
Yes, I share Director Wally's result. I look at, in my opinion, we should be appointing a new rep to the table. I don't have a problem with the continuity issue as mentioned in Clowetsy's letter, but I think his role should be as a to provide that continuity and transition strategy and to mentor a replacement. We're not involved with the actual treaty negotiations other than just as an observer status, but the position does represent this board, and as such needs to come to the board meetings in case there's any issues that need to be brought to the table. So I can't support it in its current form.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody else that has any comment on receipt? Director Anderson.
Thank you. I like in essence what Director Cornfield just said. I want to support the Clowetsy's support for John McDonald and his continued service there. Do we have any sense of how often they meet and how their meetings are disrupted in this time? And could we appoint somebody from the board as well as John McDonald for John to serve to the end of the calendar year as a, as I say, sort of some mentor transition to support a board member?
Thank you, and back to staff.
Okay, a few things. We have the option to do whatever we like. So if the board wanted John to continue for the rest of the year, they absolutely can do that. I believe their schedule has been interrupted. They've stopped meeting during the COVID times here, and I don't know when they're going to start back up, but I would assume it would follow, you know, most local governments and our meeting schedules too. And the other question was they meet about, I think, every 3 months. That's been the recent trend. Now, as we all know, advisory committees meet on a different schedule, but I think Clowetsy's have been generally going about every 3 months they've been meeting.
Okay, thank you. And on receipt, I do have Director Lee. Director Lee?
I think you have to unmute Director Lee. Also, Director Anderson moved to deferral. I don't know if there's a second.
I will get to the deferral after I see if Director Lee is finished.
Okay.
Okay. Director Lee, do you wish to comment? Okay, I move on. Director Anderson?
Yeah, I think this is an important matter and not a super timely one given our situation. I would love to hear from other board members who might be interested in serving. And so I would suggest that we just defer this for a meeting and invite other directors to put their names forward if they're interested. Thank you.
Okay, so there's a motion for deferral. Is there a second? Second, Director Adams. Thank you very much. So time and place on deferral is just to the next meeting so that staff and directors have the opportunity. So that is fine. I will call the question on deferral. Is there anyone opposed?
I'm opposed.
Director Cornfield is opposed. Director Wally is opposed. Director Davis is opposed.
I'm opposed.
Director McKenzie, was that you?
Director Kerr.
Oh, Director Kerr is opposed. Okay, so how many is that? Sorry.
Or
So I have Director Wally, Director Davis, Director Kerr. So deferral carries.
Director Cornfield.
And Director Cornfield, but the deferral still carries. Thank you very much. So we'll bring that back.
just because I'm watching chat here, one more time for Director Lee, because we called you, but you didn't respond. Is your mic on mute? We can see your chat, but we called you and we couldn't hear anything. Her mic doesn't seem to be working. Okay, she was opposed anyway, so that's fine.
I have
So I believe that still carries. Can I please get the corporate officer to confirm that?
Yeah.
on the point of order.
Director Cornfield?
Looking at the chat board, Director Lee made a very important point, which happened before the deferral move. And
I called for her and she did not answer, Director Cornfield, so I
know, but if they send it in on chat, I have a concern if we're relying on chat or we're relying on the voice communication.
Well, the chat is not videoed or recorded, so we need them to be able to come on and participate in the meeting. That's why we use it just for opposing and
I guess that's why my point of order is that if they've sent us in something on chat, then we should make sure that they're able to speak when given the opportunity. That's all.
I did give the opportunity. So right now, so the motion to defer is carried. Thank you. We are now on to number 3, which is the board procedure bylaws, investigative issues. If I can get somebody to please move receipt of the CAO's report. Thank you, Director Unger, and seconded by Director Kerr. And discussion. I have Director Adams.
Thank you. Just a question of, wasn't quite sure in alternative A as to whether this allows absent directors to submit a statement of intent to let their name stand for consideration. And just as a follow-up comment, we have been advised that the chat is only for the chair to determine the order of the speakers, not for anything pertinent to action or motions or subsequent.
Correct. If you wouldn't mind, Tom, we haven't heard from you. Is your mic working?
Tom's computer just went dead. We're just trying to contact John to come get him back online again.
Okay. Director Adams, could you repeat the question there? Sorry, I'm just looking at the alternatives.
It was just to confirm that in the discussion paper 1 under alternative A, does that enable absent directors to submit a statement of intent to let their name stand for consideration?
I believe it does, yeah.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have no other comments, but I would entertain subsequent motions through the alternatives for direction for staff after receipt, if directors would like to do that. On receipt, I have Director Cornfield.
Mine was just on the process we're using for our meetings. And I think, yes, I'm aware of what the comment is used for. But at the same time, this is what our second board meeting we've had in this format, and they're still going to be working out bugs. And there is, I don't like to see people precluded just because their mic was muted or they didn't respond back, because a lot of times by the time you switch between your machines, you can't do it. And I don't think we should be muting, no pun intended, any of the discussion that comes from the directors. And I think that that's what we're here for, is to discuss things. And I thought Brenda had made a very valid point in that we did alternates for the previous position. And with that, I'll be quiet.
Okay, thank you. I have Director Anderson.
Yeah, just for clarity, I'm wondering, Madam Chair, what you would like, how you like us to proceed in terms of giving direction to staff around the alternatives in the discussion paper, was it 1, 2, and 3? Do you want us to air our comments at this time around all of them, or entertain subsequents after receipt?
Well, that is at the pleasure of the board. Director Adams already asked a question regarding 1, but I certainly would like to go through the discussion papers number 1, 2, and 3 to see if there is any uptake from directors to give direction with those. So if you have a comment on it right now, then that is fine. I have Director Moglov in the queue as well. And then after we call question on receipt, then we will move on to those discussion papers and the alternatives.
Sure, so just very briefly then, I do support in discussion paper 1, alternative A, which allows for people to have their names stand in their absence ahead of time. I think that's fair. Discussion paper 2 around delegation requests from directors, I support B, that allows directors or alternates to make presentations under certain conditions, and I can certainly appreciate that this could be abused. We've only done it twice in very recent times, but I asked for it initially after learning of some of our directors in the Comox Valley who had taken this opportunity when there's something they were passionate about and had done a bunch of research on to share with the whole board around a topic that they wouldn't have expected staff to dig into. So I think there's a value in appropriate times to do that. And the electronic meetings, I think, yeah, no comment there for now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Director Moglov?
No, I was just saying that I will have a motion on the number 2, discussion paper number 2 about the delegations.
Okay, thank you very much.
Wait, no, I did have some, I was concerned that, sorry, I lost my train of thought. I'm concerned that Director Lee obviously is connected to our meeting, but somehow isn't able to speak. And I'm wondering if anyone can maybe just call her and see what the issue is, because I'm concerned that she won't be able to participate if her mic for some reason is not working. So I'm concerned about that, as is Director Cornfield.
So to the CAO, I'm assuming that Mr. Schmooland is working with Director Lee?
Yeah, he's online, and again, Mr. Schmooland has worked diligently trying to connect with all directors, making sure they're confident with how to run the teams. And if you're having a problem, he's just posted it again. There's a phone number that you can call and participate in the audio version of it. So Director Lee, we haven't heard from her. I don't think she's having challenges with her audio. You can call in the number you see right there and put the conference code in, and it will operate as normal. So it's challenging to talk to Director Lee because we can't communicate with her other than chat, but the number's up there. I suggest she call in and she can participate audio-wise through that.
Right. Thank you very much. Okay, so we have a motion for receipt on the floor. I have no other speakers on my list. I will call the question. Is there anyone opposed on receipt? Seeing none, I will call that moved. Onto the discussion paper then. On discussion paper number 1 on the electronic and appointment of absent directors, do we have a motion? Director Adams moves alternative A. Is there a second? Director Moglov, is there any discussion? Seeing none, I will call alternative A under discussion paper number 1, elections and appointments of absent directors, carried. On to discussion paper number 2, which is the delegation request for directors. Do I have moved by Director Unger, second? That is move B. I'm sorry, Director. I'm sorry, I've got a whole bunch of them all flying at me here. So Director Adams actually moved A first, and it was seconded by Director Unger. So alternative A is on the floor for discussion. I have Director Wally.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We're on the item here for delegations, correct?
Correct. And the
Yes.
item, the alternative that is on the floor right now is A.
Thank you. Yeah, I am opposed to delegations by directors, even having done one. I think we have the opportunity to use the director's report to communicate anything that we feel strongly about. A delegation, I think, should be reserved for members of the public.
Okay, thank you. Director Moglove.
I totally agree with Director Wally.
Well, hallelujah.
I know. I just thought I would put that in. Thank you.
Okay, Director Cornfield, you have a question.
The same, and I agree with Director Wally and Moglove. I think it's there for the public to use, and they can make the request, and that's their opportunity to proceed. And if we have strong feelings on issues, there's other opportunities for us to bring it before the board.
Thank you. Director Adams.
Oh, it's been covered. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Director Lee is saying, I agree with Directors Wally, Moglove, Cornfield. Thank you for your input, Director Lee. I'm sorry that we can't hear you right now. And Director Unger as well. So I have no more comments on the alternative A under section 2. I will call the question. Is there anyone opposed? Director Anderson is opposed. I'd just like to note that Director Davis has left the conversation, and I think he's having some technical issues. So if Mr. Schmulin could connect with him as well, that would be fantastic. Okay, seeing only one opposed, that carries. On to discussion paper number 3, which is electronic meetings. If I can get somebody to move one of the alternatives, please. I am seeing nobody that has an alternative.
Oh, move A.
Okay, so Director Adams moves A, Director Kerr seconds, and Director Anderson agrees. Is there any other comment? And alternative A is to review requirements for electronic meetings during the current state of emergency. Seeing no other comments, I'll call the question. Oh, I'm sorry, Director Lee, move that we sanction electronic meetings. We have A on the floor already, Director Lee, so if you are opposed to that, then please let us know in the chat. I'm going to call the question. All those opposed? Seeing none, that is carried.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
IT keeps telling me that Director Lee is just muted herself. So if Director Lee, if you can hear me, just there's the mic if you're unmuted. It seems like you can unmute yourself.
Okay, thank you for that. On to grant funding applications and delegation of board authority. If I can get somebody to move the CAO report, please. Thank you, Director Unger. Seconded by Director Kerr. Thank you very much. And to the CAO, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So my only amendment I made to this is a recommendation that the grant funding authority maybe be increased from 20,000 to 25,000. If you look at the summary of grants that we made, if you bumped it up to 25,000, it looks like that would catch a few more grants. So other than that, this is just a update to that policy of or this delegation of authority that grants the CEO the ability to support applications of 25,000 or less.
Okay, is there any discussion on receipt? Seeing none, I'll call the question on receipt. All those opposed? Seeing none, receipt carries. On to Part B, that a bylaw to delegate authority to staff for making grant funding applications be prepared for the board's consideration. Thank you, Director Unger. Second, Director Anderson. Is there any discussion? Director Wally.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a question to staff. First of all, when an application for a grant is made in an electoral area, would the director be aware in advance of what that application was for?
Yeah, the purpose of delegating the authority is that so I wouldn't have to go to a board meeting, which can be time consuming. But if an application came in from your area, absolutely, we'd consult with you, because if it wasn't something within the budget or identified by the area director, then I'm not going to make an application based on that. So yeah, there would be consultation with the appropriate director, and if there was support, I would just go ahead and do that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other comment? Seeing none, I'll call the question on Part B. Is there anyone opposed? Seeing none, I'll call that carried. On to number 5, which is the Campbell River Water Supply Agreement. Can I get somebody to move the report from the CAO? Moved by Director Kerr. Second by Director Moglove. And to staff, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So we've been working with staff at the City of Campbell River for some time, developing this water supply agreement. We've had one in the past. We've had a period of time where we have been supplied with water without an agreement, and the City of Campbell River has honored the past agreement moving forward. The city has made many, I would say, considerable amendments to the agreement in the amount of water they'll supply, allowing Area D to work on consumption matters. After a lot of communication with the City of Campbell River, we have come to an agreement that we put forward before you that the city has endorsed to enter into a 5-year agreement with Area D for the supply of water.
Thank you. Is there any comments on receipt? Seeing no comments on receipt, I will call the question on receipt. All those opposed? Seeing no one opposed, I will call that carried. On to Part B, which is that the chair and the corporate officer be authorized to execute the proposed agreement with the City of Campbell River for the supply of bulk water to the northern portion of electoral area D. I have Director Moglove and Director Kerr. That's moved and seconded. Thank you. And to comment, Director Adams.
Thank you. Just a question as to whether it should just be the CAO that authorizes, just from the potential perceived conflict of interest that Ken has.
Thank you for your comment, Director Adams. I looked at that myself. To the CAO or corporate officer, please.
I'll defer to Tom. I certainly have no problem with it.
And just a note from Director Anderson, wondering if it couldn't be the vice chair that signs off. Does he have signing authority?
That's a good question. I don't have an answer for you right now, to be honest.
Okay, Mr. Leach or Mr.
Tom's coming on.
Okay, just 1 second. We'll hear from the corporate officer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Am I coming through?
Yes.
Thank you. So the board could vary the motion really to designate any individuals it wishes to execute this agreement. Standard is typically for the chair and corporate officer, basically reflecting decisions of the board. It's a legal requirement, but the board can amend that if they're not comfortable with having those individuals execute the agreement to designate other persons by resolution.
Okay, so through the mover of the motion, I'm just wondering, okay, I have an amending motion to amend to say vice chair. Is there a second? Director Adams, is it okay to second? Second, Director Moglove, thank you very much. So the amended motion reads that the vice chair and the corporate officer be authorized to execute the proposed agreement. Is there any comment on the amendment? Seeing none, I'll call the question on the amendment. Is there anyone opposed?
I'm opposed.
Okay. Thank you, Director Adams. Okay, I'll call the. So the amendment passes onto the main motion, which is B with the amendment to say vice chair instead of chair. I'll call the question. Is there anyone opposed?
Opposed.
Thank you, Director Adams. With one opposed, I will call that carried. Thank you. On to bylaws and bylaw number 1, bylaw 389, home away from home service. If I can get somebody to move report from the CAO, please. Move Director Kerr, second Director Unger, and is there discussion on receipt? Director Anderson?
Thank you. Just this is such a great news story that has been in the works for so very long. I'm wondering at what point it would be appropriate to do a media release and perhaps, you know, including words from the chair, people involved. We could use some good news at this time.
I can.
Director Anderson, to the CAO?
Assuming it's supported today.
Yes, so good question. So working with the Hospital Foundation, I think what this bylaw does was we have to get the electors' approval. So we will do an AAP, and I think once that is, you know, let's say the AAP comes back positive, we would work with the Hospital Foundation and we would do some type of media release, and that would kick off a fundraising, an official fundraising campaign. We are doing one kind of behind the scenes right now, but we would want to wait to get confirmation of the AAP before we did any official kickoff and media release.
And speaking further to that, I might suggest that absolutely we couldn't do a formal kickoff until after the AAP. But in terms of gathering public support to not oppose the AAP, I think it's really worthwhile letting the public know beyond just the procedural AAP process, what the board and organizations have been doing for so many years to get us to this point.
Yeah, no, I agree, yeah.
Thank you. I have Director Cornfield.
Yep, my only concern there is the purpose of an information package that should go out to the public to explain what we're up to should be neutral. It's up to them to decide. So we shouldn't be perceived as pushing this issue. You can still provide all the factual information and the rationale for us proceeding. But in my opinion, the board cannot make a decision until after assent to the electors has been received. And I think it's fine to issue a release and release.
Is now joining.
So sorry, I was interrupted by somebody joining, but my point is that we need to maintain the board neutrality until we get that consent.
Okay, thank you, Director Cornfield. Director Adams.
Thank you, and I fully support the comments that Director Cornfield just said. I think we need to be very, very, very cognizant that the communications and any press releases are done by the Home Away from Home organization, not us. And they have a strategy and a timing on the fundraising and whole process of when and how announcements go out. And we should not be doing anything without their consent.
And just on the heels of the comments, yes, they're really the experts in this stuff, and we're leaning and relying on the Hospital Foundation and group for that stuff.
Okay, thank you very much. I have no other comments on receipt. I will call the question. Is there anyone opposed to receipt? Seeing none, I'll call that carried. And on to part B, that the approval of the electors for bylaw number 389 be authorized to be attained by a single alternative approval process for the entire service area pursuant to S342 of the Local Government Act. I have moved by Director Wally, seconded by Director Kerr. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. Is there anyone opposed? Seeing none, I will call part B of the bylaw 9393 carried. On to part C, which is that rules be suspended and bylaw number 393 be given second and third reading. Moved by Director Anderson, second by Director Wally. Is there any discussion?
Sorry, just clarity at what we're on. I thought we were on 1C.
Yeah, I think so too.
Which was just misread then.
I'm sorry. Yes, it was my fault. I'm trying to get my eyes to go in 5 different places, guys. I'm totally sorry.
Bad chair, bad chair.
Bad chair, sorry. Yes, and so the motion is that up to $2,500 be authorized to be spent from the Regional Feasibility Study Reserve to cover the cost of seeking approval of the electors of bylaw number 389.
So moved.
Yeah, okay, thank you. And is there discussion? Seeing none, I'll call that carried. On to number 2, bylaw number 393 and 394, which is the public library capital financing. Can I get somebody to please move the receipt of the CAO report?
So moved. Davis.
Director Unger and Director Davis, thank you very much. Is there discussion? And to the CAO.
I don't think anything to add here, Madam Chair.
Okay. Is there any discussion from anybody? Seeing none, I'll call the question on the receipt. Is anybody opposed? Seeing none, I'll call receipt carried. On to part B, that bylaw number 393 being a bylaw to establish a service to provide capital financing for public library facilities within the Strathcona Regional District now be introduced and read a first time. If I can get somebody to move, Director Wally, and I need a second.
Second.
Director Cornfield, thank you very much. And discussion. Seeing none, I will call part B carried. On to C, which is that the rules be suspended and that bylaw number 393 be given second and third reading. Moved by Director Moglove, second by Director Wally. Is there discussion? Seeing no discussion, I'll call the question. Is there anyone opposed? Seeing no one opposed, I'll call C carried. On to part D, which is that bylaw 394 being a bylaw to authorize the borrowing of funds for capital financing a public library facility in Campbell River now be introduced and read a first time. I have Director Moglove and seconded by Director Kerr. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call part D carried. On to E, that the rules be suspended and bylaw number 394 be given second and third readings. Moved by Director Wally, seconded by Director Unger. Is there any discussion?
Is the screen moved?
Mr. Yates, there we go.
Thank you.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those opposed? Seeing nobody opposed, I will call D carried. On to E, that the rules be suspended and bylaw number 394 be given second and third readings. Director Unger moved, seconded by Director Kerr. Thank you very much. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those opposed? I hear nobody, so I will call that carried. And we are now on to F. That the approval of the electors for bylaw number 393 and 394 be authorized to obtain by a single alternative approval process for the entire service area pursuant to S342 of the Local Government Act. Moved by Director Kerr, seconded by Director Unger. Discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those opposed? Seeing none, I'll call that carried. And lastly, on to G, that up to $2,500 be authorized to be spent from the Regional Feasibility Study Reserve Fund to cover the cost of seeking the approval of the electors for bylaw numbers 393 and 394. Moved by Director Wally, seconded by Director Kerr. Discussion? Seeing no discussion, I'll call the question. Is there anyone opposed? Seeing none, I will call that carried. Thank you very much. On to correspondence, and I will entertain all or some, whoever would like to make the motion. Director Wally moves 1 through 4.
Second.
Second by Director Cornfield. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the questions on correspondence 1 through 4. Is there anyone opposed? Director Adams is opposed. Is that correct? Oh, comment. Sorry, Director Adams. Director Adams, you had a comment?
My apologies, I was on mute. Just a comment on item 1, the Snowden demonstration for us, just that in addition to receipt, more just for staff to keep this on the radar, that we need to continue to push for the completion of the long-term recreation management plan. and continue to work with the Ministry of Forest Lands.
Thank you very much. I think staff can take that as direction.
Thank you.
Thank you. I will call the question on correspondence 1 through 4. Is there anyone opposed? Seeing none, I will call that carried. On to members' reports. P, Saratoga and Miracle Beach Development, Director Adams. Oh, yeah, moved by Director, I'm sorry. Move members' reports, Director Kerr, seconded by Director Wally. Director Lee had a comment. Oh, I'm sorry, we've gone past item 4. Thank you. And she was just asking, oh, there she is.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yay, finally. This is the first time you've been able to hear me the whole meeting. Aren't you lucky?
Yeah, no, it's good. Thank you.
Director Lee, I think you were not logged in under the SRD account.
Yeah, I had to go back through the root thing and start over again and monkey around with the computer quite a bit. So I missed quite a bit of the meeting.
Okay.
But on the, have we received the Saratoga and Miracle Beach development report?
We have moved it and seconded. If you want to discuss it, that's fine. And then I have Director Adams as well that wishes to speak to it.
Okay, I'll follow Director Adams.
Okay, thank you. Director Adams.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to reiterate to the board what I have already shared with the chair and the CAO is that over the past month and a half, I have been forwarding copies of building links that have confirmed development permits and expansion of Saratoga and Miracle Beach for houses, resort accommodation, multi-family development. And it really raises the concern to me as to the conditions that we're putting on this, that we are not going to be continually requested for increase of volume and capacity to be able to service the Comox Valley Regional District, which just seem to be stamping every development permit possible. And my concern that has been raised numerous times on the potential impact to the Oyster River should the continued demands and pressures to exceed the limits that are being proposed continue to happen, because we know that's going to be the case. And I've said it before, and I just wanted to say it again before this goes through. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I do agree with your points. Director Lee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just so the board knows that all the planning decisions for the Comox Valley Regional District are made through their public hearing processes, and their Saratoga Miracle Local Area Plan, which identifies Saratoga as a major development node, was referred to our board for comment. And apart from me, there were no other directors objecting to that plan. And so I have no vote or no say on the planning in Saratoga Miracle, on the land use planning. We do have controls on water though, and we cannot exceed the water licenses that the province issues to us. So there's no unlimited source of water in that area. We cannot go beyond what we're licensed to distribute. And this decision, you know, should have been commented on by our board when we got the referral on the development node for Saratoga. So that's all I have to say. Like, the SRD has very little control over land use planning outside their boundaries south of the Oyster.
Thank you very much, Director Lee. Director Cornfield.
Just in that regard, Director Lee is absolutely correct. We have no influence and no input into the land use planning processes of the Comox Valley Regional District. they are free to make their choices. My concern, and it's been stated many times, and thanks to Director Adams for bringing this up again, we have had continuous discussion on the water use. And in my opinion, there's the unknown impacts to the Oyster River, other than negative ones that can be assumed from taking groundwater adjacent to the river. But it also uses up future water use options for that southern portion of Area D, which is part of our region. And we made those comments clearly known on numerous times when it comes to a water use agreement with the Comox Valley. And yeah, so I take a little bit of offense when we say, well, we don't do the plans, because it may have been referred to the Electoral Area Services Commission or to the Area D Director, but I don't remember any major development plan. The only one that I have recollection of was the growth strategy, which was referred to us as required under statute. And we expressed concerns at that time as well.
Thank you, Director Cornfield. So thank you, Director Adams, for bringing this to our attention again. And thank you for your comments. I don't disagree. We have it on the floor right now for receipt. Is there any other comment? Seeing none, I'll call the question on receipt. All those opposed? Seeing none, I'll call that carried. We have no management report and I have no new business, but we do have 2 addendum items.
Subsequent to the members' report.
Oh, I'm sorry, Director Cornfield. I didn't see you in the chat. Sorry, Director Cornfield.
No, well, my understanding was chat is not part of the record, but the voice is. And so a subsequent motion that a letter be written to the Comox Valley Regional District expressing our concern over proposed and future development in the Saratoga area and the impact on the water supply.
Second that, Davis.
Thank you, Director Davis.
Point of order, Madam Chair.
Well, the motion is on the floor. Would you like to speak to the motion?
This matter's coming up later in the agenda, and more information is available, so I think you should wait until that happens.
I actually believe that there are 2 different issues, so I will let the motion stand. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. Is there anyone opposed? Seeing none, I'll call the subsequent to the members' report carried. On to, I have no management reports, no new business. On to S, addendum items. Number 1, if I can get somebody to move that, please. Moved by Director Unger, second.
Madam Chair, was there a report? Was there a report sent out with this?
Yes, it's on the agenda.
Okay.
I just need a seconder, and that is for the Home Away from Home Adult Lodge, so that we can have a discussion. Director Unger has moved. Director Anderson second. Thank you very much, Director Anderson. And is there discussion? Seeing no discussion, I would just like to chime in on this one. This is great news, and I'm glad to see that the Campbell River Hospital Foundation is on board, and that we're moving forward with this. They're very excited, and they're ready to move forward to help us fundraise, which is great. So I will call the question on the Home Away from Home Adult Lodge. Anybody opposed? Seeing none, I will call that carried. On to addendum items number 2, which is the Campbell River Community Foundation funding request. If I could get somebody to move the report from the CAO, please. Director Moglov, actually, before we do that, would you like to make a statement?
Thank you. I'm going to declare a conflict of interest on this item as I am on the board of directors of the Community Foundation, and I will leave the meeting and then someone will contact me to come back. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Director Moglov. So can I get somebody to move receipt, please?
So moved, Davis.
Thank you, Director Davis. And second? Director Unger, thank you. Is there any discussion on receipt? Director Anderson.
Thank you. I'm very supportive of community foundations in general. I've been working with the Cortes Island Foundation in its inception over the years and have learned a lot about community foundations across Canada. Their work is generally stellar. I don't know a whole lot about the Campbell River Foundation, although from what I do know, it's no exception to the rule. I understand there's a report forthcoming around other foundations in the region, and that's great. I would very much support this request for the funding allocation to the foundation. I do note that they are saying that their COVID task force is indeed throughout the School District 72 region. I'm not aware of them having reached out to nonprofit organizations on Cortes, and I don't know if they have in the rural regions beyond. That's just something to be awake to. I'd like to hear from any other directors that represent small communities or rural areas, if you're aware of the Campbell River Foundation working with any of the organizations in your areas. And if not, how we can, through the second round investigation that staff will be bringing back to the board, find ways of supporting this work throughout the region, because I don't believe that there's community foundations in most communities. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Adams?
Thank you. Just a question to staff. Should a director wish to do a subsequent, do we have the structure in place to be able to do a request of this sort?
I would say yes. So what we have is we just put some alternatives on there. And I think the request was 30,000, but there isn't a motion on there. There's alternatives that you could choose from. So I would suggest, if it's the amount you're thinking about, maybe move one of the alternatives with a different amount. Like the easiest thing.
Thank you. And I just want to reiterate that the City of Campbell River has already contributed 20,000 to the Community Foundation for this initiative. But would still, I personally would still be supportive of anything in addition to that. Thank you.
Thank you. I have Director Unger and then Director Wally. Director Unger, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Just a comment on Director Anderson. There is no foundation within Gold River, and I don't believe there is on the other smaller communities. So is it something that we could look at as far as School District 84 possibly be part of it? And that would take all your small rural communities.
Thank you, Director Unger. I mean, I think that there is an opportunity to speak to the Community Foundation about expanding their boundaries. I'm not sure that's within our mandate to force them to do, but I certainly believe that we could have a conversation about that. They are quite amenable to all conversations. And I just speak to Director Anderson. I know for a fact that the Campbell River Community Foundation has funded on Cortes Island for sure. I also know that they've funded into Sayward. I'm not sure about Cortes, but you are certainly within their bailiwick to be asking for funding through the foundation. I have Director Wally.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I'm just a little bit concerned about the precedent from the perspective of the electoral areas that really aren't part of these community foundation fundings. I understand that it's a valuable asset to the community. However, I'm not sure if electoral area taxpayers want to be on the hook for this. And if it would appear that this is something that we readily fund, then I don't see any reason why every community, every municipality wouldn't get themselves a foundation and come to us for money. I'm not sure if this is something we really want to get into. I think that under the current situation, the provincial government has made much funds available under many different processes that can be applied to. And I understand where the city of Campbell River would want to support its own foundation. That makes a lot of sense to me, but I'm not sure electoral area would really want to be involved in that.
Okay, thank you, Director Wally. Director Cornfield.
Yeah, I can't support any motion to provide more out of general admin. I agree with Director Wally. We've already supported it. And given our current issues that we're facing under COVID-19 with decreased revenues and concern about taxation and economic viabilities of our community and our constituents, I would hate to see us, and we pay what, roughly 80% out of general admin. And that means that we would be contributing an additional amount above and beyond what we already have done. And my understanding is they've exceeded their initial goal.
Thank you, Director Cornfield. Director Lee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Area D doesn't see a lot of benefit from the Campbell River Community Foundation to our constituents. However, I already support a lot of the groups that they are going to support through my grants and aid, Second Chance Recovery and the Women's Transition Society and various others. So I don't want to get into duplicating the work of Area D in supporting numerous organizations that support numerous nonprofits that support people who are disadvantaged. However, I would be willing to offer $2,500 from Area D's grant and aid fund towards Campbell River Community Foundation so that they can perhaps supply protective equipment and disinfectant for their outreach people. Things like that may not be covered by Area D grants and aid or by the general request. But, you know, those organizations that want support, such as Grassroots, Kind Hearts and whatnot, they can apply directly to Area D and Area D will consider them.
Okay, thank you. Director Anderson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. What I have come to really value in the last few years working with community foundations is that they have they're tapped into the heart of the nonprofit sector generally in a way that the regional board just isn't designed and couldn't reasonably do. And in these kinds of extreme times, even more acutely so than normal, the foundations have a sense of where funds really need to be directed in a really timely fashion. I know that the Cortez Community Foundation has been convening the nonprofit sector here and really helping to identify priorities. And I understand through the correspondence here from the Campbell Foundation that they're doing a similar thing in convening this COVID task force. So I think that if we're going to support this kind of rapid response work, this is a much more effective way of doing it than through grant and aid some many months from now to organizations individually as opposed to through this collective effort. So I think that this is a really rare time economically, and this is a way of just supporting the very best collective thinking of a community. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Adams.
Unmute.
Director Adams?
He's muted.
Is he?
Move the agenda.
Sorry, my apologies. I've said it in the past, but I think it is certainly worth saying again, and that is that I want to say how much it is recognized and appreciated of the continued support that Director Lee and Area D does to a wide variety of organizations that help the entire regional district. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I don't see any other comments, but I'm going to add in some comments here as well. I agree with Director Anderson's comments and the fact that the Community Foundation is the body right now that is taking a look at all of these not-for-profits in the COVID event and being able to have some continuity in collaborating with all of them to make sure that the money is getting to where it needs to be on the ground. I support them wholly, and just would like to tell the board that through the federal government now there is a program called Canadahelps that's actually matching some of the funding for the community foundations as they move forward to be able to help people during this COVID crisis. So, you know, by doing this and moving forward with a funding amount, then we're actually doubling their money as they get to apply through the federal government for matching funds. So I see nobody else commented here. This is just for receipt, but we will entertain a subsequent if somebody's got it. So I will call the question on receipt. Is there anyone opposed? Seeing no one opposed, I will call that carried. Is there appetite for a subsequent?
Yes, I'd make a subsequent. Hello?
Okay. Director Lee?
I would like to move that $2,500 be allocated from Area D's grant and aid
Second.
fund to assist the Campbell River Community Foundation in their COVID-19 response.
Okay,
Second.
thank you. That's been seconded. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, I will call the question. Is there anyone opposed? I would like to do opposition to that. I would like to show opposition to that. So, okay, thank you. So with only my opposition, I will call that carried. And Director Anderson, you have a subsequent.
Thank you. I just, as per the request in the attached correspondence from the Campbell River Foundation, I would like to move that $30,000 be allocated from the Strathcona Regional District General Admin Fund to the Campbell River Foundation's COVID response program.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Director Davis, thank you very
Yeah.
much. Is there any discussion?
Yes.
Director Wally.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, as a general principle, you know, I think it's wonderful that constituents like to contribute to these kinds of organizations, but I have a little bit of difficulty taking other people's money and freely giving it away without their consent. That's just my basic philosophy on these things. I think in this particular case, what we're really asking is an additional large contribution from the city of Campbell River by this $30,000, of which, as Mr. Cornfield has said, they're going to spend 80% of themselves. I think it's inappropriate. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Cornfield.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you, Director Wally. The bulk is due. It was corrected by our administrative officer. It's only 69%. So bad, Director, for being 11% up. To me, the thing comes that we got the request. Oh, I can't remember whether it was in camera or not. I believe it was open at the city. Anyway, we support the foundation and the foundation's effort, which doesn't really have the same tuning into the community. And in fact, they had asked for assistance of the city to do that. It was suggested that the Community Health Foundation or the Coalition to End Homelessness would be good organizations to work with to connect to those volunteer groups, because as a board, the Community Foundation is not directly attuned to every organization. They supply such a wide range of concerns of charitable ventures throughout the broader community. And so I get concerned when it's going after the same pot of money. And I agree that I think that there's the ability for the foundation to tap into other grants with the money they've raised. But I have a concern when we want to kick in 30,000 more, of which 69% is paid for by the city of Campbell River, when we've already contributed over 20,000, which was 1/5 of their goal.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there any other comments?
I would like to comment. Hello,
Okay. Director Lee?
it's Director Lee. $30,000 spread over our regional district entirely comes probably to about 5 cents per property. It's really minuscule when we pool all our resources. So, you know, in absence of a staff report telling us what it's going to cost us as each jurisdiction chipping in to this 30,000. But I would suspect that it's a very low number, that, you know, maybe 5 cents per thousand or less. I think that it's not insurmountable for us to pay for that. And I would like, though, from the Community Foundation to have full reporting back on how they spent the money. I want accountability, so I know that the money, you know, is, if there's any left over, they can decide to return it to us, but I'd like accountability on it.
I'm sure that if this passes, we could certainly make sure in our letter that there was some sort of piece to our CAO, please.
Just a reminder, I don't know if Director Lee read the report, but we did ask the foundation what they would be using the money for at the board's request, and they sent a very detailed letter, 2-page, it's attached to the agenda, of what their intention is for the money.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you. I have Director Cornfield.
Yes, I would like to make an amendment to the motion, and that is that it be subject to the board receiving a final or a financial report back from the Community Foundation on the disbursement of the funds.
Okay. I'm not seeing a seconder.
Seconder.
Second. Davis.
Okay, second, Director Lee.
And if I can speak
Okay.
to that, I
Yeah.
think we just heard that the report was their intention was to use it in one form or fashion or the other, but I'm always guided by an old principle my father taught me, and that's the road to hell is paved with good intentions. And I think that it's very clear that way about what the expectation of the board was. So and even though it only may be 5 cents per thousand or whatever it happens to be, we don't know how much it is. I still won't support the motion, but I support the amendment. My being is that it's still our tax dollars, and it's all those little things add up to be a lot over time.
Thank you. So we have the amendment on the floor. That's been moved and seconded. Is there any other discussion on the amendment?
Can it just be read out, please?
Certainly. To staff, if I could get that, please.
I had that financial reporting come back to the regional district from the foundation on what they used the 30K for.
Yeah.
That is the amendment, yes.
My amendment was that it be subject to receipt of a final financial report back on the disbursement of the funds.
I'm confused, Director Cornfield. So you don't want to give them the money until after they've sent us a report?
No, I said it was that the be subject to our receipt of the financial.
But the motion is to give them $30,000.
That's
So are you
correct.
saying that that $30,000 is subject to getting a report?
No.
Yeah, after they finished a final financial report on disbursement of the funds.
Okay, thank you for the clarity. Is there any other discussion? I will call the question on the amendment. Okay, is there anybody opposed? Seeing none, I'll call the amendment carried. So back to the motion as amended. Do we need that read out by staff in its entirety?
Yes, please.
Yes, please, Director Davis. Okay, to staff, please.
I can probably read this out for you. That $30,000 be allocated to the Campbell River Community Foundation from general admin, subject to the board receiving a final financial report back on disbursement of funds.
Okay.
And
Is there any other discussion?
yes, please.
Director Cornfield?
I thought it was specific to the COVID-19 response request.
It is.
And that should be in the motion, which is what my recollection of what was read out from Director Anderson was that the, and it was specific for this one particular project.
So the request actually came specifically regarding the COVID-19 funding.
But my understanding was that Director Anderson had included that in her motion that she made.
That was actually included in the previous motion made by Director Lee, and that was $2,500 from Area DGIA to assist the Campbell River Community Foundation be provided in response to the COVID IV situation, not in the other one.
Okay, in that case, I'd like
My memory is different. That was certainly my intent that the 30,000 be for this COVID response program.
And that's my understanding as well. Can I please get staff to make sure that that reflects what the mover of the motion was attempting to do?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's intent of the request as well. So I think we're all on the same page here.
Okay.
We'll review the.
Thank you. So the motion has been amended to add the financials piece in. I will call the question on the motion as amended. Is there anyone opposed?
I'm opposed.
Thank you, Director Cornfield.
I sent you a message. I'm opposed, Director Wally.
Okay. Thank you. Director Kerr is on opposition, so that's 3 in opposition. The motion carries. Thank you. We now need a motion to receive the CAO's report on closed session.
So moved.
Thank you, Director Lee.
Edith, can you text Claire to rejoin?
Director Unger, and we'll get Director Moglev back, please. Is there any discussion on receipt? Seeing none. Is there anybody opposed? Seeing none. I'll call that carried. We are now in public meeting. We have no more items on the agenda. I need a motion to terminate.
Motion moved.
Thank you, Director Unger.
Second.
Director Cornfield,
Second.
thank you very much. And is there anyone opposed? Seeing none, I'll call that carried. Thank you very much, everybody. That was.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful. Have a wonderful weekend.
Yes,
You
you
too.
too.
Bye.
For me this time.
Yeah.
Bye, everyone.
See you,
All
Ron.
right.
Martin,
Bye.
Davis.
Is now